A common adage within the intelligence community suggests that the most boisterous threats are seldom the most perilous. It is the subdued adversaries that command genuine apprehension. Within the financial sphere, we are habitually conditioned to seek out conspicuous indicators. We anticipate the colossal green candlestick that surges skyward, or the precipitous crimson decline signaling widespread panic. We are drawn to volatility. Yet observing the silver market's charts within the $60 range presently reveals a peculiar stillness. There is an absence of discernible movement. The price remains stagnant, oscillating narrowly. It experiences minor contractions of a few cents, only to rebound, and then ascends a few cents before halting its ascent. To the typical retail investor, this might appear monotonous, suggesting a stalled rally or market indecision. However, a more profound examination, delving beyond the surface price and into the underlying volume, unveils a drastically different narrative, a veritable war zone. Over the preceding few trading intervals, billions of dollars in financial instruments have been introduced into this market. Financial institutions have initiated short positions, and sophisticated algorithms have executed sell orders. Despite this onslaught, the price stubbornly refuses to yield. The reason? A formidable entity has established a protective presence. This is an organization possessing resources far exceeding those of major bullion banks, one that has implemented a limit buy order of such magnitude that it effortlessly absorbs the entire global supply of silver without faltering. We are witnessing the emergence of a monumental player. This is not a grassroots movement orchestrated on social media, nor is it a speculative hedge fund seeking ephemeral gains. Instead, this represents a strategic acquisition of a significant stake, poised to permanently alter the established equilibrium of power. Over the course of this four-part investigation, our objective is to track this influential entity. We will employ detailed forensic market data to substantiate a substantial wealth transfer. We will draw connections between the burgeoning artificial intelligence sector, the escalating energy crisis, and the conspicuous depletion of physical silver reserves. Furthermore, we will elucidate why a stable price coupled with robust trading volume constitutes the most potent bullish indicator on the planet. The market is not dormant, it is actively consolidating, and it is imperative to align oneself with the trajectory of this dominant force. To comprehend the dynamics at play within the $60 price bracket, one must first grasp the methodology of astute capital deployment. If an individual investor desires to acquire silver, they typically access their brokerage platform and execute a market order. This action typically results in a marginal price increase, after which they secure their desired quantity. However, attempting to purchase silver valued at $650 million, equivalent to approximately 10 million ounces, through a simple market order is unfeasible. Such an action would instantaneously catapult the price to $100, resulting in significant slippage and a severely compromised entry point. Consequently, the preferred approach involves the utilization of an iceberg order. An iceberg order is a specialized algorithmic trading strategy employed by institutional players. It involves the placement of a small, visible order on the trading book, perhaps 5 contracts, while a considerably larger order, potentially 50,000 contracts, remains concealed within the dark pool. Each time a seller executes a trade against the visible 5 contracts, the algorithm seamlessly replenises the order. This process of selling and reloading maintains the price at the specified limit, while the volume indicator registers substantial activity, creating the illusion of inexhaustible demand at that level. Eventually, sellers exhaust their available positions. Once this exhaustion occurs, the large buyer withdraws their protective barrier, leading to a dramatic price surge. This precise scenario is currently unfolding. Observe the silver chart in the $63 zone. On each occasion that banking institutions attempt to suppress the price, it encounters an impenetrable unseen floor. Instead of rebounding, the price simply halts. This cessation represents the opening of the dominant buyer's acquisition channel. Based on the trading volume recorded over the preceding 48 hours, we estimate that a singular entity has absorbed between 10 million and 15 million ounces of silver, translating to approximately $650 million to $1 billion in capital. The question then arises, who possesses such financial capacity? It is not a conventional hedge fund, as these entities typically exhibit caution towards commodity markets. It is not a collective of retail investors whose capital is largely depleted. It is certainly not a bullion bank, which customarily liquidates positions during price rallies rather than defending price floors. This financial footprint points towards a strategic corporate entity, an organization that requires the physical commodity not for speculative trading, but for its operational continuity. Such a company perceives the $63 level not as an exorbitant price, but as an essential and cost-effective form of insurance. We are currently witnessing an accumulation phase of unprecedented scale, and the longer the price remains stable, the more pronounced the upward price movement will be once this dominant buyer's position is complete. The consolidation phase we are observing signifies a transfer of ownership, a transition from less committed holders to more resolute stakeholders. Let us delineate the participants. The less committed holders are speculative investors who acquired silver at $50, anticipating a swift profit. They exhibit nervousness, perceiving the price stagnation at $63 and fearing a potential downturn. Any price dip triggers their panic, leading to immediate sales, thereby providing the necessary liquidity. Conversely, the resolute stakeholders are the buyers. They are unperturbed, operating with a 10-year investment horizon, actively acquiring during periods of market apprehension. This process, characterized by the departure of volatile investors and the entry of long-term holders, is fundamental to the initiation of a significant market cycle, as it establishes a robust foundation. Consider the construction of a skyscraper. Erecting it on unstable ground will inevitably lead to collapse, whereas building upon a solid concrete foundation ensures its enduring stability. The $63 level is solidifying into precisely such a foundational support. The fact that the price is not experiencing a decline despite substantial gains in recent weeks indicates a fundamental transformation in market dynamics. In previous instances, such as during 2011 or 2020, a rapid price ascent was invariably followed by a sharp correction. This was attributable to speculative fervor, where the price declined in tandem with the fading hype. Today, however, the speculative excitement has dissipated, yet the price remains resilient. This is the critical indicator. Demand is no longer driven by discretionary sentiment, it is now imperative. There is a non-negotiable requirement for acquisition. This transfer of ownership is imperceptible to the casual observer, who interprets a flat chart as an indication of market stagnation. A professional, however, views the same flat chart accompanied by elevated volume as evidence of market cornering. We are witnessing the absorption of the market's available supply into a gravitational void. Once the less committed holders have fully divested and the final apprehensive speculator has relinquished their position to the dominant buyer, there will be no remaining sellers. At that juncture, the price will enter a phase of genuine discovery. However, a common query arises: could this not simply be financial institutions covering their outstanding short positions? This is a valid concern, yet the available data strongly refutes this possibility. Let us examine the corroborating forensic evidence. Evidence A: timing of transactions. Institutional buying typically occurs during designated trading hours, such as the fixing periods or near the market close. The current buying pattern, however, is continuous and spans across different trading sessions: the Asian session, the European session, and the US pre-market hours. This consistent, dispersed buying activity is indicative of algorithmic accumulation designed to minimize market impact, unlike the often more erratic and urgent movements associated with covering short positions by banks. Evidence B: physical premiums. If this were merely a matter of covering paper short positions, one would anticipate a narrowing of the spread between paper and physical silver prices. Instead, we observe a widening of this spread. Physical silver premiums in Shanghai and on the US wholesale market are experiencing an upward trend even as the paper price remains stable. This divergence strongly suggests that the buyer is actively taking physical delivery, effectively removing the metal from circulation. Banks, in contrast, typically prefer to roll over their paper contracts. This buyer, however, demonstrates a clear intention to acquire the physical commodity. Evidence C. Sector rotation. Examining the broader stock market, we observe a concurrent upward movement in related sectors while silver is being accumulated. Copper prices are rising, uranium is showing strength, and even technology stocks associated with artificial intelligence are experiencing gains. This shift in correlation indicates that silver is becoming decoupled from gold and is instead aligning with the performance of the electrification sector. This suggests that the buyer is an industrial entity treating silver as a fundamental input akin to copper or lithium, a strategic component for securing their supply chain rather than a hedge against currency devaluation. Therefore, if the buyer is neither a bank nor a retail investor who possesses substantial capital, requires significant energy resources, and harbors deep concerns about supply shortages, the answer points towards major technology corporations, specifically the hyperscalers of artificial intelligence such as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta. In the subsequent part of this investigation, we will meticulously connect the dots that the mainstream financial world appears hesitant to discuss. We will delve into the monumental $100 trillion artificial intelligence revolution and the critical role silver plays in its realization. We will also analyze the recent strategic alliances formed between entities like BlackRock and Microsoft. What constitutes AI infrastructure? It comprises data centers, power grids, and expansive solar farms, all of which critically depend on silver. The dominant buyer is not an enigma. It is the world's most influential industry, recognizing a fundamental oversight in its provisioning, the procurement of essential batteries. You have likely encountered the adage, data is the new oil, but data necessitates energy, and energy, in turn, requires specific metals. We are transitioning from a purely digital economy back towards a tangible physical economy. Artificial intelligence does not exist solely in the cloud. It is powered by electricity transmitted through silver conductive components. An artificial intelligence query consumes 10 to 30 times more electricity than a standard internet search. The existing power grid is insufficient to meet this demand. Consequently, major technology firms are undertaking the construction of their own independent power generation infrastructure, including vast solar arrays to energize their data centers. They are now acutely aware that the current silver market is insufficient to accommodate their projected needs. Thus, they are proactively securing their supply, essentially acquiring the mines before they construct the factories. In Part 2, we will dissect the artificial intelligence-driven energy crisis. We will quantify the projected silver requirements for powering the next generation of artificial intelligence, specifically models like ChatGPT-5, and demonstrate why the discrete acquisition currently underway at the $63 price point is merely the vanguard of a much larger trend. The established financial institutions are engaged in a battle against the past, while this dominant entity is actively purchasing the future. If you have followed the initial segment of this analysis, you are already aware of the identity of the principal actor. A major strategic buyer, very likely a technology conglomerate, is systematically acquiring every available ounce of silver around the $63 mark. You understand that this procurement is characterized by a calm, calculated, and unyielding approach. Now we must address the crucial question, why? Why would a software-centric enterprise demonstrate such a pronounced interest in a precious metal? What compels entities like Microsoft, Google, or Amazon to secretly amass silver reserves? They are not engaged in the creation of jewelry or the minting of coinage. Their objective is the construction of intelligence. We stand at the nascent stages of the artificial intelligence revolution. While Wall Street remains captivated by semiconductor manufacturers like NVIDIA and AMD, they are overlooking a far more fundamental requirement: energy. Artificial intelligence does not subsist on air, it thrives on electricity. A standard internet search consumes approximately 0.3 watt-hours of energy. In stark contrast, a query processed by ChatGPT demands roughly 3 to 10 watt-hours, representing a tenfold to 30-fold increase in energy intensity per interaction. As these artificial intelligence models evolve and approach a state of general intelligence, their energy consumption will escalate exponentially. The existing power grid, characterized by its age, fragility, and current operational capacity, is demonstrably incapable of sustaining this escalating demand. Consequently, major technology corporations are confronting an existential challenge. They possess the advanced processing hardware, the sophisticated software, and a vast user base, but they critically lack the necessary power infrastructure. In the second installment of this series, we will expose the dimensions of this artificial intelligence energy crisis. We will meticulously trace the connection between the substantial infrastructure investment funds recently announced by these tech giants and the conspicuous absence of physical silver from the market. Furthermore, we will elucidate how their commitments to achieving net zero emissions have compelled them into a strategic corner, leaving the acquisition of significant quantities of silver as their sole viable recourse. This dominant buyer is not speculating on price fluctuations. They are, in essence, acquiring electricity in its solid, tangible form. We need not speculate on the actions of these major entities. They have, in fact, communicated their intentions, albeit through a language not readily understood by conventional market analysis. In late 2024, a transformative partnership was unveiled. BlackRock and Microsoft jointly launched a $30 billion fund dedicated to artificial intelligence infrastructure. A closer examination of the fund's prospectus reveals its objectives. What constitutes artificial intelligence infrastructure? It extends beyond mere servers. The official announcement explicitly mentions the development of data centers and the requisite energy infrastructure to power them. $30 billion. To provide context, the entire annual global mine production of silver was valued at approximately $25 billion. This single fund possesses greater capital than the total annual output of the entire silver mining industry, and this figure pertains solely to Microsoft. Amazon has allocated billions towards renewable energy initiatives, Google has committed similar substantial sums, and Meta has also pledged significant investments. Collectively, they command a financial war chest exceeding $100 billion, earmarked exclusively for the expansion of power generation capabilities. Here lies the critical constraint. All these corporations have publicly pledged to achieve carbon neutrality or net zero emissions by the year 2030. This precludes the construction of coal-fired or natural gas power plants. The development of nuclear facilities requires a decade or more. Wind power, while a renewable source, suffers from inherent unreliability. This leaves only one scalable, readily deployable carbon-free energy source capable of rapid implementation within a 12-month time frame: solar power. They require solar energy on an unprecedented scale, not just rooftop installations, but gigawatt-capacity solar farms encompassing vast tracts of land to power their data centers. As previously established, the fabrication of highly efficient TOPCon solar panels is impossible without the use of silver. Therefore, let us perform a simple calculation. If Microsoft intends to invest $10 billion in solar infrastructure and silver constitutes approximately 10% of the manufacturing cost of a solar panel, this translates to a direct demand for $1 billion in silver from this single corporation alone. This figure aligns precisely with the observed magnitude of the iceberg order. The $650 million accumulation observed at the $63 price point is not the act of a speculative hedge fund. It represents the operations of a procurement department. It is likely Microsoft or an entity acting on their behalf, securing the essential raw materials to ensure their $30 billion investment is not jeopardized by a scarcity of silver. They are acquiring the silver paste even before the solar farms are constructed, understanding that by the time the farms receive approval, the silver may no longer be available. However, skeptics raise a point. Solar panels are becoming increasingly efficient, purportedly requiring less silver per watt. While this thrifting is indeed occurring, it triggers what is known as the Jevons paradox. This economic principle posits that advancements in technology that increase the efficiency of resource utilization often lead to an overall increase rather than a decrease in the total consumption of that resource. The reason for this phenomenon is that as solar technology becomes more efficient, it also becomes more affordable and powerful. Its reduced cost incentivizes greater deployment, extending beyond residential rooftops to vehicles, windows, and vast desert solar farms. The efficiency gains in silver usage are being entirely overshadowed by an exponential surge in demand, particularly exacerbated by the requirements of artificial intelligence. An AI data center operates continuously, demanding consistent, baseload power reliability. To power such a facility using solar energy, it is insufficient to simply generate enough power for daytime usage. The solar array must be overbuilt by a factor of 3 or 4 to charge the massive battery storage systems necessary to sustain operations throughout the night. Consequently, for every gigawatt of artificial intelligence computing capacity, an estimated 3 to 4 gigawatts of solar capacity are required. This multiplier effect is the critical factor driving silver consumption. The major technology corporations are fully cognizant of this dynamic. They have conducted extensive simulations and understand that achieving net zero emissions for artificial intelligence operations is mathematically unattainable with the current global silver supply. This leaves them with two principal alternatives: abandon the pursuit of artificial intelligence, which is highly improbable, or abandon their net zero commitments, a move that would constitute a public relations disaster. Their chosen path, therefore, is a third option: to control the silver market. Their objective is not to artificially inflate prices. Price is of secondary concern. To entities like Microsoft, a silver price of $100 would be a negligible rounding error. They perceive silver as a mere construction material, akin to concrete or steel. Its availability is the paramount consideration. This strategic imperative explains the specific price action we are observing, exemplified by the iceberg order. They are not actively driving the price upward, rather, they are establishing a price floor. Their implicit message is, we will acquire all available supply at $63. Continue selling to us. They are systematically draining the market. This represents a fundamental shift in corporate strategy, reminiscent of the early 20th century, when Henry Ford not only manufactured automobiles, but also acquired iron mines, rubber plantations in Brazil, and coal mines. He recognized that to achieve dominance in the automotive industry, resource ownership was indispensable. For the past 50 years, corporations have largely divested from such integrated resource ownership, relying instead on just-in-time delivery systems and allowing market forces to manage supply chains. However, the era of just-in-time operations effectively concluded in 2020 with the widespread disruption of supply chains, leading to shortages of critical components and factory shutdowns. CEOs have learned a stark lesson. If you do not control the resource, you cannot guarantee its availability. We are now witnessing a resurgence of vertical integration. Tesla is developing its own lithium refining capabilities. General Motors is investing directly in mining operations, and now major technology firms are establishing strategic reserves of critical metals. They are, in essence, becoming sovereign entities. Microsoft possesses greater financial resources than many nations. Apple wields more influence than numerous governments. Why would they entrust the delivery of their silver to the vagaries of commodity markets? They would not. They are constructing their own secure storage facilities, potentially located in regions like Nevada, Texas, or Ireland. Warehouses are being filled with industrial-grade silver, not for speculative trading, but for direct utilization. This silver is being permanently removed from the global investable float. It will not appear on commodity inventory reports, nor will it be available for banks to lease. It constitutes a hidden inventory. Because this stockpile is invisible, the market remains unaware of the true tightness of the supply. We observe commodity reports indicating 30 million ounces of available silver, yet we remain oblivious to the 50 million ounces held in private vaults owned by shell companies associated with Alphabet Inc. The dominant buyer at the $63 level is constructing an impregnable fortress. Once this fortress is fully provisioned, their active support of the price will cease. By then, however, there will be virtually no silver remaining for other market participants. We have identified the WHO major technology corporations. We have determined the why, the artificial intelligence energy crisis. We have elucidated the how through iceberg orders and the creation of dark inventory. But what are the implications of these developments for you, the retail investor holding a modest collection of silver coins? It means you are now navigating a market populated by powerful entities. However, for the first time in recorded history, these dominant players are operating in a manner that aligns with your interests. They aim to maintain low prices during their acquisition phase, but once their procurement is complete, they will undoubtedly seek higher prices to marginalize their competitors. In the third installment, we will examine the collateral impact of this market dynamic. We will explore the consequences for other industries reliant on silver when major technology firms effectively absorb all available supply. What will be the effect on the medical industry? What will be the repercussions for the jewelry market? Most importantly, I will demonstrate how to position yourself to benefit from their considerable purchasing power, thereby mitigating the risks associated with their potentially volatile market influence. The discreet buyer is maintaining a steadfast defense of the $63 price level. This represents your signal. The window for accumulation is open, but it is rapidly closing. Do not miss the third installment, where the squeeze becomes profoundly personal. If you have been diligently following this investigative series, the emerging picture is becoming disturbingly lucid. We have identified the dominant entity operating around the $63 price point, not a speculative investor, but the nexus of the artificial intelligence and industrial sectors. This represents the consolidated force of major technology companies and global energy providers actively securing the physical silver essential for constructing the infrastructure of the future. They possess a financial war chest exceeding $100 billion, a mandate to achieve net zero emissions, and are currently absorbing the global silver supply through substantial discrete iceberg orders. However, a critical question remains largely unaddressed. What are the implications for everyone else? The silver market operates on a zero-sum principle. Approximately 830 million ounces of silver are mined annually. If entities such as Microsoft, Amazon, and Samsung were to suddenly require an additional 200 million ounces, this metal must be sourced from existing supplies, inevitably displacing other consumers. In economic terms, this phenomenon is termed crowding out, where a dominant entity entering a market consumes all available resources, leaving smaller participants deprived. In the third part of this series, we will scrutinize the collateral damage resulting from this intense accumulation. We will examine the industries that are poised to experience severe shortages of silver, the potential medical crisis precipitated by this scarcity, and the ensuing alarm within the military-industrial complex. Crucially, I will instruct you on how to strategically align yourself with the dominant buyer, leveraging their purchasing power to safeguard your wealth rather than being overwhelmed by their market impact. The major technology corporations are actively acquiring resources, while all others are on the verge of facing severe shortages. When discussing silver, our conversations typically revolve around monetary value or its application in solar technology. We frequently overlook silver's crucial role as the most potent antimicrobial element known to science. It is indispensable in modern medical treatments, featuring prominently in burn creams, catheters designed to prevent infections, and surgical instruments. Furthermore, silver is a critical component in military applications. A Tomahawk cruise missile, for instance, contains approximately 500 ounces of silver. The reason for this inclusion is silver's unparalleled conductivity of electricity. In the sophisticated guidance systems of a multi-million-dollar weapon, copper is not utilized. Only the superior conductivity of silver is deemed adequate. Torpedoes employ silver-zinc batteries, and fighter jet cockpits feature silver-coated glass. Herein lies the challenge. The medical industry and the military-industrial complex are price inelastic. A hospital cannot unilaterally declare silver has become prohibitively expensive, we will substitute it with plastic. The consequences would be dire, resulting in patient mortality. Similarly, the Pentagon cannot simply state, silver is now priced at $100 per ounce. We will reduce our orders accordingly. The notion of constructing less expensive munitions is a path to defeat. Consider what transpires when a colossal entity in the technology sector procures all available inventory at a price point of $63. This action invariably alerts critical governmental and healthcare organizations. The Defense Logistics Agency becomes aware. The procurement networks for hospitals take notice. They realize their meticulously planned just-in-time delivery schedules are no longer viable. Consequently, they contact the metal refiners. The refiners, in turn, report, "Regrettably, Samsung has acquired the entire supply." This situation precipitates a competitive bidding scenario, not among market speculators, but between the imperative of national security and the necessity of public health. The United States military possesses the authority to intervene. They can invoke the Defense Production Act, granting them the legal right to commandeer the silver before it reaches corporations like Apple. However, Apple possesses substantial financial resources and pre-existing contracts. This conflict generates an upward pressure on prices. Should the military seize the supply, Apple will be compelled to offer higher bids for the remaining available quantities. Conversely, if Apple secures the supply, the military will need to pay a premium to redirect it. This is the unintended consequence, the collateral damage. The technology giant did not intend to instigate a crisis within the medical field. Yet by monopolizing the readily available supply, they have inadvertently created severe shortages for the most sensitive industries globally. As an investor, understanding this dynamic is paramount. You're not merely speculating on a market bubble. You're holding an asset that is actively sought after by industry titans such as Raytheon, Pfizer, and Microsoft. This positions you in an exceptionally secure investment. So, who bears the cost? If the technology sector, the military, and the medical industry all require silver, who will be left without? The jewelry and silverware industries will be displaced. These are discretionary sectors. India, for instance, imports a significant quantity of silver for its traditional adornments, cutlery, and decorative items. This is deeply ingrained in their culture and serves as a means of wealth preservation. However, there exists a price threshold beyond which cultural practices yield to economic realities. When the price of silver reaches $50, $60, or $70, Indian demand transforms from acquisition to liquidation. A homemaker in Mumbai might view her collection of silver platters not as heirlooms, but as a potential down payment for a home. She would then sell these items to a refiner. The refiner would process this silver, and it would subsequently be acquired by a company like Samsung. This represents the scrap cycle, the market's sole recourse. The dominant buyer, operating at the $63 mark, is counting on this cycle. They anticipate that the elevated price will encourage the release of old silver from the jewelry market, thereby supplementing the industrial supply. However, there is a critical caveat. This secondary supply of scrap metal is finite, and its replenishment is a protracted process. Persuading 1 billion individuals to part with their jewelry, collecting it, melting it, and refining it to 99.9% purity requires considerable time. The technology behemoth requires the silver immediately. The scrap cycle unfolds over years, not days. This disparity between the immediate industrial demand and the slow regeneration of scrap supply is precisely what drives prices to extreme levels. We are on the precipice of the obsolescence of the decorative silver market. Silver is becoming too valuable to wear. It is becoming too valuable to dine with. It is reverting to its fundamental purpose, critical industrial application. If you possess silver jewelry, retain it. It may represent ownership of an asset that future generations will find prohibitively expensive. Now let us consider your position. How should you navigate this situation? You are not a colossal entity capable of dictating market movements. Attempting to contend with the dominant buyer will lead to your marginalization. Trying to anticipate their actions will result in your dislodgement by market volatility. The optimal strategy is to draft. In competitive racing, drafting involves positioning oneself in the aerodynamic wake of a larger vehicle, thereby reducing wind resistance. This allows the following vehicle to expend less energy while maintaining higher speeds. The substantial buy order, functioning like an iceberg order at $63, is your equivalent of a large transport vehicle. The major buyer is investing billions to maintain this price level, absorbing selling pressure and establishing a foundational support. Your strategic approach involves three key elements. Firstly, resist complacency. The dominant buyer desires for you to become disengaged. They prefer a static price, hoping you will lose interest and sell to them. Do not succumb to this pressure. Boredom is a deliberate trap. Secondly, capitalize on the established base. Each time the price approaches the lower boundary of this consolidation range, execute a purchase. You are essentially buying alongside the dominant entity. Place a stop-loss order just below their perceived support level. If they withdraw their support, you should exit the market as well. However, as long as they maintain their position, your investment is secure. Thirdly, monitor trading volumes. As long as trading volume remains elevated and the price is stable, accumulation is actively occurring. A decline in volume signals that the dominant buyer's acquisition is complete, at which point the price is poised for an ascent. If you are acquiring physical silver, where should you store it? The dominant buyer is not utilizing commodity exchanges or standard bank safety deposit boxes. They are opting for private, non-bank secure storage facilities. You should adopt a similar approach or secure it yourself. The drafting strategy is straightforward. Identify the major purchaser, emulate their actions, and await their upward price momentum. Currently, the significant buyer is consolidating their holdings at $63. Their financial commitment indicates that $63 represents an advantageous entry point. Who are you to dispute a commitment of $30 billion? Therefore, we are aware of the presence of the dominant buyer. We understand they are absorbing available supply. We recognize their impact on both the military and jewelry markets. However, an iceberg order cannot persist indefinitely. Eventually, sellers will exhaust their holdings. Ultimately, the dominant buyer will complete their acquisition. Ultimately, the standing limit buy order will be rescinded. What occurs in that precise moment? The vacuum. When the substantial buy order at $63 evaporates and no sellers remain, having been acquired by the dominant entity, the price does not merely increase incrementally, it teleports. It will ascend from $63 to $65, then to $68 within minutes. This is the release of pent-up energy. In the subsequent segment, the concluding chapter, I will guide you through the breakout phase. I will detail the specific technical targets that become relevant once the $65 resistance level is breached. Furthermore, I will provide you with the crucial warning indicators signaling that the dominant buyer has concluded their accumulation and is prepared to permit a significant price appreciation. The accumulation phase is characterized by its tedious nature. The subsequent price acceleration is the exhilarating part, and it is imminent. Let us examine the volume profile of silver. This analytical tool illustrates the price levels at which the majority of trading activity has historically transpired, indicating the market's collective memory. We have established a substantial volume base in the 20s. We have now formed a significant volume base in the low 60s. Observe the price action above $65. Review the historical charts dating back to 1980 and 2011. The price spent minimal time in the 70s or 80s, ascending through them rapidly and descending just as swiftly. This creates a void in market resistance. There are no previous investors at $75 awaiting an opportunity to recoup their investment. There is no discernible overhead supply. There is no institutional memory of price behavior in those ranges. Consequently, there is zero resistance. Upon clearing the gamma wall at $65, the price enters a void. Within this void, the fundamental laws of physics shift. A modest buying impulse triggers a substantial price movement. If the dominant buyer acquires 1 million ounces at $63, the price may advance by 10 points. However, if the dominant buyer acquires 1 million ounces at $68, the price might only increase by 5 points. The reason for this is the absence of sellers. The sellers have been eliminated at $63. The only remaining holders are those committed for the long term, anticipating significantly higher prices. This explains the dramatic nature of the markup phase. You may awaken one morning to discover that silver has surged by $4. By lunchtime, it may have increased by an additional $3. The media will likely decry a speculative bubble, but this is not a bubble. It is price traversing a vacuum to locate the next zone of liquidity. Based on my analysis, the next significant area of liquidity, the next point where sellers might reemerge, is the inflation-adjusted peak of 1980, which is considerably above $100. This vacuum serves as a critical juncture for short sellers. We are about to enter this zone. Before we celebrate, I must issue a caution. Financial institutions are also aware of this vacuum. They understand that if the $65 level is breached, their positions are jeopardized. Therefore, before the dominant buyer allows the price to escalate, we often witness one final aggressive maneuver, a stop run. Immediately preceding the breakout, the price might experience a sharp, temporary decline. It could drop from $63 to $61 within 5 minutes. The purpose of this is to trigger the trailing stop-loss orders of those who purchased at the lower end, to dislodge any remaining hesitant investors, and to confirm the absence of further selling pressure. This acts as a springboard. If you observe a sudden and seemingly inexplicable price drop within the next 24 hours, do not panic. Examine the trading volume. If the price declines on low volume, it is a deceptive tactic, a false signal. The dominant buyer is testing the market's perimeter, reinforcing the defenses before initiating the ascent. If you liquidate your holdings during such a dip, you are essentially forfeiting your opportunity just as the market is about to surge. Maintain composure. The underlying structure is bullish. The accumulation is demonstrably real. The volatility is merely the engine revving in anticipation of acceleration. The most challenging aspect of investing is not acquiring assets at their lowest point. It is retaining profitable positions through significant price appreciation. When silver reaches $70, you will feel like a financial savant. Your profits will be substantial, and your primal instincts will urge you to sell, to secure your gains, fearing a potential decline. This is your most perilous inclination because you are evaluating your wealth in terms of a depreciating currency. If you liquidate your silver at $70, what will you receive? Dollars. What will you do with those dollars? Purchase overvalued stocks, invest in bonds yielding negative real returns, deposit them in a bank where inflation erodes their value. If you exchange a tangible asset for a depreciating currency at the commencement of a major economic cycle, you are trading a prize racehorse for a meager pile of feed. The dominant buyer will not divest at $70. They will not sell at $80. They have no intention of selling. Their objective is consumption. You must adopt the mindset of the dominant buyer. You are not trading silver, you are banking in silver. You should only consider selling if you intend to acquire another tangible asset, such as property, land, or a business. Never sell simply to see a larger figure in your bank account. The temptation to exit prematurely will be immense. The market fluctuations will induce anxiety. However, recall the energy crisis and the iceberg order. The fundamental catalysts driving this appreciation are enduring for years, not mere weeks. Do not prematurely indulge in your rewards. We have reached the conclusion of this examination. We commenced with a stagnant price chart at $63. We uncovered a clandestine purchaser investing $650 million. We established a connection to the $30 billion investment in artificial intelligence infrastructure. Finally, we mapped the price trajectory into a vacuum zone, projecting it to $100. The narrative of silver in 2025 is not contingent on inflation nor on the Federal Reserve. It is a matter of physics. We are attempting to construct a future akin to science fiction with a supply chain rooted in the Industrial Revolution. We aim to power the world with electricity using a metal whose extraction we have largely ceased. The arithmetic is fundamentally flawed. In commodity markets, when the mathematics do not align, price must provide the resolution. The price must ascend sufficiently to either suppress demand or stimulate supply. We are entering an era of scarcity. For the first time in your lifetime, you will encounter situations where desired goods are unavailable. Out of stock will become the defining phrase of the decade. By holding silver today, you have secured a prominent position. You have preempted the actions of the world's largest corporations. You have transformed your depreciating fiat currency into a strategic resource. The dominant buyer has completed their acquisition. The iceberg order is dissipating. The vacuum is widening. Remain seated, observe the unfolding events, and maintain your position. Subscribe.